10 years driving electric vehicles, having tested over 100 different EVs, here's what I love and what I hate. Number one, the silent driving experience. It gives you a lot of calmness. You can just enjoy. You don't have any noises from the engine and so on. Together with a good installation, it's just something to calm you down. Really enjoyable. Number two, the spontaneous acceleration. Woo! Yeah, it's really a thing. These electric vehicles, they have instant torque. You always get great acceleration, even in low entry versions, even if they just have rear drive or front wheel drive, then the performance all-wheel drive models. And on paper, they are super, super quick and maybe even make supercars almost obsolete, because some compact EVs have acceleration figures of supercars at a very, very comparable low price level already. Number three, the efficiency. An electric vehicle translates the energy into power on the road, on the wheels, whereas combustion engines create so much waste heat. Indeed, electric vehicles are way more efficient. And number four, the environmental aspect. Yes, now it gets a little tricky. Recent studies show that electric vehicles are already more sustainable and more efficient, use less resources just after they have been running, like 20, 30,000 kilometers. And then they're already better than combustion engines, even if they run on fossil fuel produced energy. Even better, of course, if they run on renewables. But the thing is, to me, it's not about the argument at this moment, but rather in the future. So even if the gap between electric vehicles and combustion engines would not be that large yet, electric vehicles have the potential to be way more sustainable in the future when the battery production gets cleaner, uses less resources, or maybe the raw materials used for the batteries are even better, or let's say have less impact while production and so on. Yes, the battery production at the moment is the biggest problem for the electric vehicles as for the sustainability factor. But the thing is, newer technologies can solve this, whereas combustion engines are basically almost at the end of the development cycle. So to me, the most important aspect is indeed the potential for the electric vehicles to be even more sustainable in future. Plus, there's already the effect that electric vehicles, the whole development, creates this kind of rethinking atmosphere. For example, the interiors of electric vehicles are often already more sustainable, less animal materials are being used. They are looking at all the supply chains. So when the manufacturers are producing the electric vehicles, they are more aware of things, they are looking at more things, they try to improve the things even more, and customers are also more aware. It should be the same for the combustion engine models, yes, but the electric vehicles, they started this rethinking, so I think that's also a very important aspect. Number one, infrastructure problems. Yeah, recharging, sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's very complicated. First of all, the public recharging, maybe especially in your country, there's not enough infrastructure yet, especially as for fast charging stations, and sometimes you're lacking on range, and then you arrive somewhere in the middle of the night and say like, okay, this is my last chance, but is this charging station working now? I've had so many experiences that like, maybe I have to stay overnight here. Oh, glad it's working, and then it's fine, but it's so close sometimes and it's really, really stressful, and charging at home can also be a big problem indeed. So my story with charging at home is I started just using the normal household plug, recharging like 10 kilometers of electric range per hour, just with a very long cable from the garden to the parking lot. Of course, didn't make too much sense. Then I tried to install a wall box in the basement garage. But then some of the co-owners of that huge basement garage just stood up and said, and literally, electric mobility is the devil's work. And I'm a lawyer and I will fight against this, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, and that was the law at that time in Germany, that then the project is cancelled. That has been changed meanwhile. The law is friendlier towards electric mobility, but still it takes a lot of effort if you have co-owners of something. If you have your very own house, it's not a problem, you can install that. Yeah, but in other cases, it's really tricky also to get a charging possibility at home. Or maybe you just have a small flat and then it becomes an even bigger problem. Maybe you can't do anything or something. So infrastructure is the #1 problem for electric mobility, I think, and especially this kind of risk recharging that you get in situations where you don't know exactly if you can proceed. Number 2. Range anxiety. So when I started doing EV reviews, I had electric vehicles with about 200 kilometers or 125 miles range. Yeah, that was some tricky thing and it didn't make much sense. Meanwhile, we're more towards 400 kilometers, 250 miles of real range for most electric models. That helps. Still, would anyone have bought combustion engines with this kind of fuel range? Never. So I'm expecting from an electric vehicle that I can also use it on longer trips, at least that I can drive some 500 or maybe even 600 kilometers. Yeah, some 300 to 400 miles pure electric in one day without recharging. And then it starts to get less stressful, because sometimes maybe you drive 200, 300 kilometers, so about 200 miles to somewhere, and then you don't know exactly if you can recharge there and also maybe at the proper speed or something. Yeah, and for these cases, it just needs to be possible to go to that place and also back again and then recharge again at home. Yeah, if it's not the case yet, then of course secondary car use, okay, just for the city, fine, you don't need a huge range. But come on, don't most of us want one car that also serves most or all purposes? Well, there's also the aspect that the sound is missing, because with a combustion engine, especially 6-cylinder, 8-cylinder or so, it gives you this special gut feeling, of something very common, low frequency, sonorous sound. This also calms you down in a way, or can evoke emotions. And the sounds in the EVs, yeah, sometimes they're really artificial and futuristic, and it's really spaceship-alike or something. They start also to include something like more combustion engine-alike sounds, like here in the Genesis GV60. However, I feel that there is a need that you can just pick, hey, today I want a V6, today I want the V8 sound, and then I don't have to miss anything if I like it, or if I prefer it, just turn it off again. And number 4, the unnatural feeling of electric vehicles. Boost button here to boost the power, pedals to change recuperation, and the driving modes electronically change how much power is applied. Acceleration, settings, recuperation. Most of the things in the electric vehicle feel kinda artificial. You don't have this natural connection to the vehicle. You don't have a certain gut feeling. So it's something very subjective. It can be good or can be better. It's really subjective. But sometimes this, special power curve in a combustion engine more translates into a more natural driving feeling, because it's not that perfect. An electric vehicle sometimes feels too perfect and too linear. It feels like it is a machine, like a perfect robot. Whereas combustion engines, which are obviously also machines, more tend to feel a little bit less imperfect and therefore more human-alike. Do you know what I mean? Well, and that is to me a thing that can be emulated with electric vehicles, but no one has done it properly yet. I think that most of the disadvantages of an electric vehicle can be solved just by using software and this kind of emulation program for people like me, who really embrace and appreciate all the advantages of the electric vehicles, but maybe, especially for a transition period, want something of that old spirit, these old emotions, and we can also have that with EVs. It just needs to be maybe implemented in a better way. Or what's your take on that? Please leave me your feedback, what you love and what you hate about electric vehicles. Let's discuss it in the comments, and also tune in to our recent electric vehicle episodes.